This is the High Stakes Lowdown, a RotoViz podcast brought to you by the Fantasy Football Players Championship. I'm Eric Balkman from the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, the Better Sports Network, and the FFPC. You can connect with me on X at Eric Balkman and the FFPC on X at FFPC. Before we get into the show, I want to remind everyone that you can get a listeners-only 10% discount to RotoViz by using the code RVRadio2025. That's RVRadio 2025. Your subscription gives you unlimited access to all of the RotoViz content and tools, and it supports the podcast channel as well. Now, without further ado, here's the latest episode of the RotoViz High-Stakes Lowdown.
There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Season 11 premiere of the FFPC RotoViz High-Stakes Lowdown. Yes, it's true. We are doing Season 11 of this. We have never done, Season 9 was crazy. Season 10, insane. Season 11, it's unbelievable that we're kicking this off to you tonight. And we're pleased to bring it to you, courtesy of the Fantasy Football Players Championship. MyFFPC.com, MyFFPC.com is your sponsor tonight. My name is Eric Balkman, at ERICBALKMAN. I am the host of the RotoViz High-Stakes Lowdown, the High-Stakes Fantasy Football Hour on MyFFPC.com, and, of course, the FFPC Better Sports Network channel at MyFFPC.com, Better Sport, YouTube.com/Better Network. Oh, my God. I am just pleased to be bringing you this live tonight. I am so sorry. I want to let you know that the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament Championship is live right now. Not only the Classic, but the Superflex Best Ball Tournament Championship. $125 plus $35 entry fee for the Classic as well as the Superflex right now at myffpc.com. You can win $40,000 and $10,000 myffpc.com. And I'm pleased to bring you the champions. I shouldn't say the champions, maybe the future champions, but a guy who has won it before, Brad Thomas, as well as his father, Scott Thomas. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome in myffpc.com, the guys who are leading off Season 11 tonight in the Fantasy Football Players Championship High-Stakes Lowdown on RotoViz, Brad Thomas and Scott Thomas. Gentlemen, welcome. How is what is this, early February treating you so far?
Pretty good. I think we're already like 6 or 7 drafts in for each of us. But no, we're excited already. We've been talking fantasy football for a couple weeks now as far as the new season, and we're excited for the drafts.
So Scott, let me lead this off to you tonight. I feel like Brad does a lot more of these never too early drafts. I mean, I know you do a lot as well, but I feel like Brad does a ton more. Like, you let me know how this is leading in. Are you quizzing Brad on everything that's going on? Is he quizzing you? How are you guys getting the lay of the land right now?
We basically talk a lot about it, but we look at ADP, what's happening with ADP, how it's changing, how it's impacting, where we think it's wrong, where we think it needs a correction. So it's kind of an ongoing thing. I say every year that I'm not going to start drafting so early, and I end up doing it. It's just before the Super Bowl is crazy, but it's a lot of fun too, because you can get some bargains and stuff like that. Not everybody has caught on to everything yet, but you do see a lot of rapid adjustment, while you're going through these early drafts. But I do tend to do more early best ball than I do the late.
Okay.
So that's common with me.
So Scott, this leads you kind of off to my, I guess quasi first question. You don't want to draft this early. You want to draft later. whether it's Brad, whether it's somebody else, what attracts you to drafting in this Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament that is going to pay off a $40,000 grand prize? What attracts you to this every single year?
I win more of them. The early best ball I seem to do a lot better in than the late best ball. So, I mean, that's really the main reason. My win percentage is higher with the early ones. I really can't put my finger on why, but so I tend to do more of those. It tends to help me out.
So Scott, when in regards to winning more of them, what do you think the reason is? Is it just people aren't paying attention? Is it because you are getting in on, rookies or non-rookies, free agents, perhaps? What is the reason that you feel like when you draft this early, you are, drafting better or getting better values than people who are drafting on in May, June, July? What do you think the reason is that you've been so successful?
Well, I think at this time of year, there's a lot of unknowns, and it's very difficult to draft. You haven't even had free agency yet, so you don't know where the movement is. You don't know who's going to get drafted by what team. And so a player's value can significantly go up or down. When you get to July and August, everybody knows everything. There's no advantage at that point. There's almost like a footprint or a template, and anybody can just jump right in. And you're really looking at the same guys. You can practically predict who goes in each round. At this time of year, that's not the case. And so I find it, advantageous to basically try to get in there and project what is going to happen or what I believe will happen, and then use that to my advantage.
Brad, let's let you chime in on this. I think your father, which by the way, I've not made this clear, father and son combo tonight, Scott and Brad Thomas. I think that it's important for you, who won the 2024, was it the Never Too Early Best Ball Superflex Tournament? I'll let you correct me on that if I'm wrong. But let me know how you feel about drafting this early and the values that you're getting in January as opposed to people who are drafting in August.
Yeah, I mean, I actually, my least favorite time of the year to draft is probably August, early September. I really enjoy, I won the Never Too Early Superflex tournament in 2024. I love, my favorite part about doing these drafts this early is identifying the guys, like you said, that are going to move up in ADP. I couldn't have been more excited, at the time, to have 25% Matthew Golden in the 18th round. It didn't work out, but this, guys like that will move up to like the 8th round by August. And so I love identifying or trying to identify the guys I think will move up significantly with ADP over the next couple months. And so that part of it's always exciting for me.
So, Brad, when you talk about this, listen, I know that you don't draft a ton in July, August, and September. But for you right now, this is Christmas, right? This is the type of time where you want to be drafting to cash in not only about these veterans that are about to see free agency or maybe not about to see free agency, but not the rookies that we don't know where they're going to end up. You think about guys and we'll talk, about the Mekhi Lemons and Jordan Tysons and Carnell Tates of the world or whatever. But you have the opportunity to cash in early on these rookies. And I know I'll be drafting in Louisville here this coming weekend with, the Super Sunday drafts and whatever with the KFFSC, KFFSC.com. I wonder if the rookies, regardless of how you feel about them, cashing in on the rookies, that's where it's at, because you can make a mint when it comes to the Never Too Early tournaments going forward here.
Yeah, I mean, I still think even the guys that are well known right now, as far as rookies that are projected to go in the top 10, 15 picks, I still think they're mispriced. I think a lot of these rookies are, because people just they don't know much about them. They don't like picking guys that are unknown. Nobody wants to do the research for who's the second best tight end in the rookie class, things like that. And I think those are the things I try to work on when I'm doing these drafts.
Scott, what do you, I mean, like, bring me into the I don't know if there's a secret room, if there's a secret sauce to this. What have you and Brad talked about over the years? Because I know you guys are definitely in early on veterans and rookies. Is there a secret sauce that FFPC players can be aware of that they can cash in right now? What have you and Brad talked about over the years for you?
As far as, our discussions basically revolve around which players we think are the best value and which players we think are being severely oversold. So, I mean, it's a year by year thing. It's not, there's no formula, I wouldn't say. I wish there was, but I mean, it's a lot of guesswork and a lot of predicting. I think we talk because I feel pretty good when Brad and we kind of agree on something or we're pretty solid on it. We tend to be accurate on those, but there's a lot of players that we disagree on. Okay. Mm-hmm. So he may make his case and I make mine, and sometimes we change each other's mind. So, I mean, it's kind of a little bit of back and forth. And I'm sure you go through the same thing. You're kind of high on a guy, and then somebody starts talking to you about him, what he doesn't like, and the next thing you know, you're not so high on him. So, I mean, it's challenging at this time of year because, I mean, they're still hiring, well, probably finished now, but hiring coaches. You know what I mean? So you're just getting the coach landscape, which is very critical. And I can tell you, I started drafting on the 19th or whatever the first date was, and there's players that I loved on the 19th. I don't love them today. And that's how fast it can change.
What changes about that? Because I think this is very compelling for somebody who, think about the people, Scott, that do not draft until August or September. What changes for somebody who is looking to maybe draft early this year? What changes for a player like that from January to February ADP, or early January to late January ADP? What goes into that, and sort of like, whether it's beat writers or, like other people that you're drafting against, Scott, like how does that change so rapidly here in early 2026 for, again, late 2026 drafts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, a lot of it is through the media. There's a lot of podcasts out there on fantasy football. There's a lot of sports news and analysts that breaking everything down. And I mean, 1 week, Malik Neighbors is going to be ready for camp and he's looking great. And then 2 weeks later, I don't know if he's going to be ready week 1. So it does change. And it's like, okay. And I hate to jump on like the most current news all the time, because a lot of times it's overreaction. And you don't want to really overreact. Sometimes you can get a discount off that. Sometimes you change your mind and say, you know what, I'm fading this player. I'm not going to draft him right now, or I'm going to take a very minimal percentage of him. But yeah, there's news coming out almost every single day. And, me being retired, I sit there and watch all of this stuff, and I just soak it in. And that can be a good thing and a bad thing, because you're constantly changing your opinion. But I think it's just, a lot more does come out. Coaches get hired. You don't like that coach, or you love that coach. And all of a sudden now your opinion of that offense changes. So I think there's a lot happening at this time of year, and you haven't even touched free agency. And you just have to kind of stay tuned. I mean, I think it was Singleton was one of the rookie running backs or whatever, and he broke his foot. And I see guys grabbing him all over the place, right? This was after he broke his foot. Yeah. Well, if you're not up to date on all the news, okay, never assume a guy is healthy. Usually before I make picks, I could be in my 3rd draft or my 4th draft, I'm going to check news on the web. I mean, I'm going to check it about updates on that player or whatever. Maybe something happened yesterday that I don't know about. And it's funny how you wouldn't think at this time of year that stuff would happen. But I mean, we got guys having accidents at home, that have nothing to do with football, and now all of a sudden they're hurt. So, I mean, yeah, you stay up to date on all the player news that you possibly can before you're making your selections. And if you do that, at least you'll be informed up to that moment. That doesn't mean it doesn't change 2 weeks later.
Brad, how do you feel about, when you're drafting this early in the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament or the Never Too Early Superflex Best Ball Tournament? Do you feel like, your dad is right here with you have to be up to date on everything? Or is this more of like, okay, well, there is a immediate reaction to that. And then there's also a reaction like after that news sinks in that maybe you can buy in the reverse way too. I don't know. I mean, like, you tell me how you feel about this tournament, because I think it could go both ways, but perhaps it is going more specifically in one way than the other.
Yeah, that's a good question, because it's something I think about when I'm taking these players and news constantly is coming out. I think you have to be up to date with everything that's been going on. Like you said, with coaching changes, with new offensive coordinators coming in, you have to be aware of how this is going to impact the player. But at the same time, you have to, you may not like maybe a coach, but you can't be completely reactionary. I think, when the Matt Nagy example came in today, where he's the new offensive coordinator now, my dad, who's been he's been taking Giants now, for the last 2 weeks, said, I'm done drafting Giants. Right. So yeah, you have to know what's going on. You have to be able to react, but just kind of be careful not to overreact, because maybe you can get some value. Maybe everybody's overreacting and players are dropping and in ADP. So I think there's a balance between it.
So guys, let's get into this tonight. We've talked in vagaries so far, which has been great, but I want to get into some, coaches, offensive coordinators, play callers, what have you. Scott, I'm going to kick this off with you. We do not know. We have not had a concrete report that the Raiders have hired Clint Kubiak, the offensive coordinator for the NFC representative in the Super Bowl this year. We have not received any concrete information, and we won't until after the Super Bowl, that he is the new head coach for the Raiders. But you think about Clint Kubiak for the Raiders. He is going to have Brock Bowers. He's going to have Ashton Genty, Jack Besh, perhaps somebody else that they draft on day 2 of the NFL draft, or maybe day 3. Trey Tucker is going to be there. Scott, when you think about this, as far as what we can ascertain right now for Genty, Bowers, and the like, who are the players we need to be springing upon before the collective gets noticed that, hey, Kubiak's the head coach of the Raiders? We need to be drafting all these guys. What do you think about the Raiders right now? I'll let you weigh in on the obvious guys and then the not so obvious guys.
Yeah, even before the Kubiak news, okay, and I do expect him to be the head coach of the Raiders. As you said, it's not locked in yet, but I anticipate that. I mean, he's pulled out of some other things too, and it seems like the right fit for him. Before the Kubiak news, I was very high on Brock Bowers. I was not high on him last year. I was very down on Bowers. I owned very little. I saw that regression coming. I had no idea that the Raiders would be as bad as they were. But anything right now is an improvement over Pete Carroll and Geno Smith. I mean, I watched the Raiders last year, and they were just awful. I mean, absolutely awful. And the thing about it with Brock Bowers is he was second in points per game. Okay, he missed a bunch of games, but second in points per game at tight end to McBride. And that was with an awful coach, awful offense, awful everything. Okay. I anticipate even with they draft Mendoza, they get a new coach, and if it is Kubiak, I anticipate a big upgrade this year from last year. I think the only tight end that could outscore McBride would be Bowers. Okay,
Yeah.
I think those two are kind of on a class level of themselves. Genty, it's going to depend on what they do with the offensive line. It's not good. It wasn't good last year. They're going to have to make some major improvements on the offensive line for Genty to fully pay off at his ADP. I like the talent there, but he doesn't have the blocking. Okay, and so if they do that, if they make those offensive line moves, Genty will be a stud. As far as other Raiders, the only other Raider that really comes to mind that is kind of you can get for a very late pick right now is Jack Besh. I liked him last year. He did really nothing as a rookie, but Pete Carroll didn't give him a lot of opportunity. He's kind of a guy I could see fitting in a slot or somewhere thereabouts in this new Raider offense and make a big jump from his first to second year. So I would say he's a late round flyer that I would grab, and I have taken him in some drafts. You can pretty much get him for free. So, but really Bowers, number one for sure. I like him, whether Kubiak is there or not. I like him more if Kubiak's there. Genty will be based on the offensive line, and Jack Besh would be my flyer.
Okay, Scott, this is good because we'll go rapid fire on this. For Raiders position players in 2026, I'm going to cite fantasymojo.com at fantasymojo on X. Darren Armani, the godfather of the FFPC Pros versus Joes contest. Anytime we cite ADP on this program, it's all dedicated to Darren Armani. Ashton Genty, running back 6 right now at the 203, according to the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament. Scott, is that a buy, or I shouldn't say buy or sell? Is that a guy that you want to draft, Genty, at the 203, or fade him at that point? Your thoughts?
I have not drafted him yet. I prefer James Cook.
Okay.
If you really want to know the truth. Okay, James Cook, love the guy. And with Brady as coach, that's run. And we're going to talk about Cook. I guess that's one of the questions without going into that. But usually I take him there, but Genty is right there with him. Okay, it's just, it's really a matter of preference and all that. I want to see a little bit more in the offseason here as to what the Raiders' plan is before I push Genty up the board. I had him a lot last year. I had a high ownership at Genty. It didn't work out so well. And I find that even with Bijan Robinson when he was a rookie and Gibbs when he was a rookie, a lot of these rookie running backs take a while to get going. And so therefore, I have questions right now about rookie running backs. It just takes them, and if they don't get going till, late October, early November, you're already in trouble. So, and we saw that last year with Henderson and all these guys, right?
Yeah.
So I think that, Genty's in his second year. He should make an improvement, but that line was bad. And I don't know what they're going to do in free agency. If I see that they're making an effort, and I would think Kubiak would, making an effort to bring in some free agent linemen before the draft, I said that would be a positive movement for me, and I would be more likely to take Genty in that spot.
Scott, to your point, James Cook is also going at the 203, right next to Genty. Right now, running back 6, running back 7, so I totally get that. Brock Bowers, tight end 2, at the 110 in the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament. That is basically 5 picks after no, I shouldn't say that. 3 picks. 3 picks after Trey McBride. He is going ahead of Colston Lovin, who is the tight end 3, essentially 1 full round before Loveland. Scott, your thoughts on Brock Bowers as the tight end 2 at the end of the first round, if anybody who is watching this drafting in the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament?
Yeah, no, Brock Bowers could be the number 1 tight end. I feel that McBride and Bowers just give you a positional advantage that you're not going to get with other players. I like, last year I changed up. I was typically taking tight ends early, getting one of the premier tight ends. I didn't do that last year, and I kind of regretted it. I guessed a lot. I hit on a few, and I missed on a few. But the difference between a McBride last year and some of the guys that I drafted later was humongous. So I don't know that, if somebody said, hey, are you going to take, is McBride a lot better than Bowers? I can't say he is. I think those two are going to be very close together. And I just was in a draft right now that I'm doing, and Bowers went first. He went before McBride, which that's the first time I've seen that in one of my drafts. I think he went like at the 4th or 5th pick of the first round. And McBride was still on the board. So I think you'll see that in the very first couple of drafts, I think, and Brad might remember, but I think that Bowers was going like early second, like right at the 1-2 turn, maybe in there. I saw him go at the 2-1 or whatever. And I started grabbing him like at the 110. And his ADP moved up pretty quickly at that point. But yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with either one of those guys.
Brad, let me ask you this: as we dip into a tight end premium milieu, I think, and I'll be in Western Kentucky for the Super Bowl drafting in the KFFSC Super Sunday drafts. Like I think I got 9 of them scheduled there. So I have to flag plan. Like I have to know how I stand on these tight ends. Right now, I feel like if I don't get one of the top 2 or 3 guys, and when I say top 2 or 3, I mean McBride, Bowers, Loveland. If I don't get one of those 3, I'm probably waiting till the 8th tight end, 9th tight end, 10th tight end is off the board. And then I'll try to capitalize on the tight ends that are left. Brad, in the never too early best ball tournament in the FFPC, which you have been drafting in, how have you been handling tight ends? Not to say like you are hit or miss on the early tight ends, but when you talk about some of the other, tight end 7, tight end 8, tight end 9, the Laportas of the world. And we'll get into Laporta in a little bit. But when you think about how you handle tight ends in this never too early best ball tournament, is it like early tight end or bust? Can you capitalize on tight end 6 through 12? Or like, I guess, I don't know, because there's a lot of different ways to handle it right now. I'm curious as to the guy who won the 2024 FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament. I'm curious as to how you would handle the position in 2026.
Yeah, I mean, when I've won, it's always been because of the tight end position. For me, I try to target McBride and Bowers. I think Loveland's a little rich for ADP for me. He's going in the 2nd round. I understand why people are taking him that early, but Trey Warren's going, I think, like about 3 rounds later. And so I do target tight ends early. I do want at least one in the top 5 or 6 would be preferable. And then I try to sprinkle in a couple late round guys, but I do like to get at least one top 8 tight end. There is a cutoff for me that I really try to aim for. And like you said, Laporte is kind of that cutoff for me. But yeah, so for me, for FFPC, it's vital for me to get those elite tight ends, those top guys that are difference makers for you.
Okay, so Brad, let me ask you this. We already mentioned Loveland as the 212. Warren, let me ask you this. I'm trying to think about phrasing this off the top of my head. If I'm going to ask you right now, with let's assume you have no idea what running backs, wide receivers, quarterbacks you have at this point in the draft. How likely are you to draft Tyler Warren as tight end 4 at the 412? What do you think about that ADP?
That might be a little early. I think I was able to get him in the 5th round in the past.
Okay, that's fine. Harold Fannin, tight end 5 at the 502.
Yeah, I prefer Warren slightly. So again, it's a little early.
That's fine. So let's say you wait on Warren, you wait on Fannin, they're both gone. You are sitting at the 508 in FFPC Best Ball Never Too Early Tournament. 508, Tucker Kraft as tight end 6 is staring you in the face. What do you do there?
I'm taking them. Yeah, for me, I have Kraft, Warren, and Fannin pretty close to each other.
Okay. All right. So you have Kraft above the Pitts, Laporta, and Gadsden, Ferguson, Sadiqs of the world, right?
I do, because I think if we're going to get a healthy Tucker Kraft, I mean, we saw what he did last year. I'm pretty excited about him.
Okay. That makes perfect sense to me at least. I want to shift back to the wide receivers here, Brad. I don't know how the wide receivers fell in for you a couple years ago when you won this whole tournament. But I'm curious as how the rookie receivers are falling in for you right now. You think about Jordan Tyson from Arizona State, all the tools in the world, but cannot stay healthy. Mekhi Lemon, who maybe does not have all the tools and all the size in the world, but the production is there out of USC. And then the third wide receiver, why am I blanking on him right now? Carnell Tate from Ohio State. Listen, there's a lot to like about him, obviously, but he was second banana to Jeremiah Smith, which we said about Emeka Egbuka. We said about several Ohio State receivers over the years as well. Those are the top 3 wideouts in FFPC rookie drafts, FFPC best ball drafts right now, never too early best ball tournaments. Those seem to be the top 3 wide receivers that are going. I have to ask you here, Brad, do you have a favorite among those 3? And listen, if the answer is like, yeah, Balky, I'm trying to gravitate to, sort of like having an even dispersal of all 3 of those wide receivers, that's fine too. But I'm curious as to how you feel about those 3 specific wideouts in the never too early best ball tournament drafts right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think all 3 of these are fantastic wide receivers. I try to get out of all my drafts with at least one of these guys. Carnell Tate's going the earliest. And rightfully so. He's projected. I saw as early as 5 to the Giants in drafts. I always say, like, if there were these 10 commandments for fantasy football, thou shalt draft Ohio State wide receivers has to be there. They produce all the time. I mean, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Emeka Egbuka from last year, at least the first half. Harrison's been the only disappointing one. But for me, Carnell Tate in the middle of the 6th round's great. I think he's going to be probably a 3rd round pick, top 20 by the time August comes.
Hold on. You think he's going to be a 3rd round NFL draft pick or higher than that? I just want to get you on the record here.
Sorry, yeah. So I think he's going to go in fantasy football drafts. I think he's going to go top 20 receivers, probably 3rd round.
Okay. All right. For redraft leagues.
For redraft leagues, for best ball, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have staked your claim on that. Scott, let's go back to 2025, and you think about the running backs that went in those leagues. Genty, whatever, Hampton. There's a lot of guys to consider. But I want to ask you about 2026 drafts and Cam Scadaboo, a guy who was not a 1st-round pick, maybe a borderline 1st or 2nd-round pick in FFPC rookie drafts. How likely, when you consider redraft for Scadaboo, is he going to be a top 15 running back this coming year?
It was like, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, I was drafting a lot of Giants. I even took some shots on Neighbors. I took shots on Dart and also Scadaboo, trying to get the little stack there, between them. I love the Giants offense potential. I like the Harbaugh hiring. Unfortunately, I think 2 weeks ago I said, man, anybody but Nagy. And who did they bring in but him? And that really crushed me. I just don't think he's going to get the most out of this group. And so I went from like on fire with the Giants offense to lukewarm. And as Brad said, you don't want to overreact. You don't want to, it's not to say I will never draft Scatterboo or Dart, but I do think that maybe the ADP that they're going at right now is a touch high based on the Nagy hiring. That's how I would basically put it. I've seen Scatterboo moving up. When I took him, it was like the 5-6 turn. Now I've seen him go in the end of the 4th round. So he's moving up, and that's too high based on – see, you have 2 problems with the Giants. Number 1 is injury. Okay, Dart, concussions all over the place. Okay, you had Scatterboo had a terrible injury. You got Neighbors had a terrible injury. So they're all battling to come back from injuries and potential injuries this year. I mean, Scatterboo is not exactly – he's kind of a battering ram, okay? And, you know, when he gets out on the field, he only plays one way. And it's a way that can typically get you injured. So you got the injury problem, and then you got the new coaches. You know, how are they going to mesh all this together? How are they going to get this offense working? I love all 3 players. I really do. But they have those 2 things hanging over their head. And I think probably with the case of Neighbors and Scatterboo, they might be going a little high. I think Dart's okay where he's going. It's usually like mid-6th or something like that. And I'm kind of okay with that. But, yeah, the other 2, they're going to have to come down a little bit in price.
Let me ask you this, Scott. We'll play a quick – well, this is a quasi would you rather. I'm going to name 5 running backs that are going currently in the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament. I'm going to give you 5 running backs that are all going ahead of Cam Scatterboo. You tell me how many of these running backs, or which running backs, I should say, you would draft Scatterboo over. RJ Harvey, Kyron Williams, Trevian Henderson, Kenneth Walker, and Derrick Henry. Which one of those running backs, or maybe multiple running backs, I don't know, would Scatterboo be a better choice in FFPC best ball drafts right now than Harvey, Williams, Etienne, Henderson, Walker, and Henry?
None.
So you're taking Scatterboo over all those guys?
No. I wouldn't take him over any of those guys.
So Scatterboo goes after all those players?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Good. We got that clarification on that, which makes sense, I guess, when it comes to that. Now, Brad, I want to bring this back to the backfield. Well, I'll stay in the backfield here. One of the weird situations we have in the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament, obviously, as well as the Never Too Early Best Ball Superflex Tournament, is Jacoby Brissett. Brissett was picked as a backup by the NFL at the start of last year, and he transformed into a starter because the Arizona powers that be, OC, ownership, maybe Jonathan Gannon, I don't know. They decided that he was going to help them win games better than Kyler Murray last year. Brissett ended up crushing it with Michael Wilson, Marvin Harrison, and obviously Trey McBride last year. But when you look at him in the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament right now, Brissett, who is not guaranteed anything right now, is being drafted as quarterback 30 at the 1606. So he is being selected after Michael Penix, after Daniel Jones, J.J. McCarthy, but before Shadur Sanders, before Garrett Nussmeier, and Justin Fields. What is the proper take that we should have on a player like Brissett, knowing that he is capable of being a top 10 fantasy quarterback in the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament where you can't switch your guys, right? But also knowing that he could be a backup the entire season. How do you handle a guy like Brissett?
I Yeah, I want him at quarterback 30. I want him on every one of my teams if I can get him. So Kyler Murray, I believe, if you just Google him, I mean, you get article after article that he's going to get traded. It seems pretty likely. He has a large contract still, so if they can't really cut him, it'd be a huge cap hit. But I would imagine that they trade him to somebody. It just isn't working out over in Arizona. So, yeah, if that happens, I'm taking Brissett as if Kyler's getting traded. At quarterback 30, I think it's a steal.
Okay. So this is the point I want to bring across. If Murray gets traded, and I guess technically Brissett is under contract for the Cardinals. If Murray gets traded, it's a slam dunk. Brissett is throwing to Michael Wilson, Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison this coming year, Brad. That's the way you've been handling it in Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament?
I'm not worried about the free agent quarterbacks. It's not great. And I'm not worried at all about the rookie quarterback class for the Cardinals to draft somebody. So, yeah, the way I'm handling it is he's next in line. I think he is a journeyman, and he did have a career year last year, and he doesn't win a lot of games. But I think for fantasy football purposes, he's a bridge quarterback that I think will be their starter next year.
So let's and Scott, I want to shift this over to a team that we're not, as far as the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament goes, a team that we're not wondering, hey, what are they going to do at quarterback? We know what Tampa is doing at quarterback with Baker Mayfield. What we don't know is whether Mike Evans comes back, right? He could retire. He could just stay in free agency and sign with Buffalo, or, I'm trying to think of another good team, Indianapolis or whatever, where he wants to sign a deal to become a 1B or 1A on the team to win a Super Bowl championship. So we don't know what's going on with Mike Evans. That aside, Scott, when you consider Jalen McMillan, when you consider Chris Godwin, when you consider Emeka Egbuka, how do you handle these wide receivers in Tampa, knowing that Mike Evans could come back to gum up the works, but also knowing that Evans could be gonzo and Baker Mayfield is throwing to one of these other three guys that could be paying off big time as far as their ADPs go right now?
Yeah, I'm drafting all of them. There is one point I wanted to make, though, that is concerning. And it goes back to Emeka Egbuka last year. He came out like a house on fire as a rookie.
Mm-hmm.
But there was no Godwin when he was tearing it up. And Godwin came back, I don't know if week 5, week 6, something like that. Godwin returns. Egbuka disappears. He has some really bad weeks where he doesn't do anything. Then Godwin gets hurt again or something, and he's out like week 10. What happens to Egbuka? Week 10, blows up, has a good game. Okay? I don't think it's coincidence that Egbuka's value is drastically hurt with Godwin on the field. Okay? And I think it's a lot, they're both suited for the slot. And I think part of the problem is when Godwin is in there, they were giving him priority. And are paying him more money. So I understand it. But if Godwin is going to be the slot receiver, most of the time, that forces Egbuka outside, and I feel like it changes his game a little bit. Okay. I don't think it was Mike Evans that really impacted Egbuka. I think it was more Godwin. And so now you look, let's say Evans leaves. Okay. You got Egbuka and McMillan on the outside, Godwin in the slot. So I love McMillan. You can get him dirt cheap. He's a very good receiver. Okay. Egbuka's going at the 5.7. Okay. McMillan at the 17.2. Okay. Massive difference, right? And then Godwin right in the middle at the 9.4. I've been taking mostly Godwin because I feel like he's the best value. You get him in the 9th round, and before he got hurt, okay, he was like a top 5 receiver that year. All right. Now, I don't care if Mike Evans is there or Mike Evans is on another team. Godwin's going to do his thing. So there's less risk. And basically, if he gets back anywhere near that form that he had before, he could be a steal in round 9. Ibuka in round 5 scares me a little bit. I think he's the more talented guy, all right? But with Godwin there, I just think the focus shifted, okay? The other thing I'll say about Tampa Bay is I don't know any team that had more injuries on their offensive line with their receivers. Bucky Irving, he didn't play till what week? That team was so banged up last year. I think you can just scratch out and put a line through last year because I think they'll be back in 2026. They'll be a much better offense. So I want shares of the Tampa Bay offense. I want Bucky Irving. Not only that, Rashad White and Sean Tucker. Well, Rashad White's a free agent. He's probably gone. Sean Tucker's a restricted free agent. I think they'll end up keeping him. But if you look at the running backs, you look at the receivers, Cade Otton is a free agent. And I do believe Mike Evans leaves. So I think if you're looking at McMillan, Godwin, Ibuka, I think you got to grab some shares of all three. Just know that I think the most risk and the most reward is Ibuka.
Okay, so let me ask you this, Scott. And this is probably an unfair question. If you believe Mike Evans is not playing in Tampa next year, but he is playing somewhere in the NFL, what is your most likely destination for Mike Evans? Is it Buffalo? Is it San Francisco? Is it somewhere else? Where do you fall in on Evans in 2026?
Yeah, I haven't really thought about this as to where he would go. Buffalo is definitely an option. Okay. I mean, they're in desperate need of a downfield receiver for Josh Allen's arm. It's probably the best fit for him. But I don't know what Buffalo plans to do.
No, nobody does. They don't even know.
No, I don't think they do. And as far as other teams go, Pittsburgh needs a receiver really bad.
Yeah.
Okay. They showed that last year. I could see Evans going to Pittsburgh. The problem is they're not a contender. At least I don't see them right now as a contender, especially if Rodgers doesn't come back. All right. I don't know how that would work, Rodgers with McCarthy again, but that's another story. But yeah, Pittsburgh could use a receiver, but probably not a contender. That's why Buffalo jumps out at me. Mm-hmm. I don't think he's a Chiefs type guy. And the Chargers are just kind of loaded with receivers.
Yeah.
I don't see him going there either. So the Raiders would probably love a Mike Evans. Okay. Absolutely love him. Like Kubiak getting Mike Evans. But again, you can't call them a contender.
No.
So I think that's where it plays in. Like there's probably a lot of teams that would love to get Evans, but not all of them are going to fit what Evans wants.
That's the thing. And that's what we're trying to ascertain as far as drafting in the FFPC Never Truly Best Ball Tournament. I have to ask you, Brad, here when and this is something I've wrestled about over the last couple of weeks. I'm in Northeast Wisconsin. You guys may or may not know this, but Jeff Hafley has moved from Boston College to Green Bay, now down to South Beach as he takes over the head coaching job for the Dolphins. And he has said, along with John Eric Sullivan, who is the new GM there, that when they get to these winter games, these cold weather games, slow may get fast, or beg your pardon, fast may get slow, but big doesn't get small. Miami may have to go on the road to play Elliott Wolf's New England Patriots. They may have to go on the road to face off against Joe Brady's Buffalo Bills. They may have to go on the road to face the New York Jets, whether that's Aaron Glenn's New York Jets or somebody else's New York Jets going forward, whatever. My question here for you, Brad, is this. Devon Achane is running back 4 in the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament. 110 overall. Your thoughts on drafting a player like that in the mid to late first round, knowing that Jeff Hafley and his new GM, who he worked with in Green Bay, John Eric Sullivan, seemingly with a target on big players that will be road graders, not necessarily fast guys that can bounce it outside with Devon Achane. FFPC owners right now, Brad, they're believing in Achane as a 110 overall pick. I want to know what you think about Achane at that spot right now.
Yeah, I rightfully, they should believe in this guy. He is number 1 in yards per carry. He's one of the most talented running backs in football. 1,300 plus rushing yards. This is a guy that I think the Dolphins are going to, honestly, I mean, why would they not want to use their best player? The quarterback situation is questionable. We don't know what Tua is going to do. The Tyreek Hill, is he going to be on the team? But I will say that they're going to utilize Devon Achane. They have guys like Jalen Wright and Ollie Gordon behind them, but I'm not sure how good they actually are. Jeff Hafley, and then, of course, they have Bobby Slowick, who was the passing games coordinator, now the OC. So they kept them in-house. I think they're going to keep things very similar. So it would be a surprise if they changed things up and didn't utilize Devon Achane like they did last year. This is their guy. This is their franchise player. And I think he's not the best running back. I think he's definitely top 3 or 4. And I have no concerns about this guy at all.
Brad, I'm glad to hear you say everything here that you've said about Devon Achane, because I had some misgivings about him, and I didn't know how this new coaching staff was going to invest in him. But at the same time, I understand that he is their best playmaker. He is their best player on offense, and this is the player that you want to either be throwing the ball or rushing the ball over Jalen Wright, over Ollie Gordon. So as it stands right now, and I always say this on this show, I reserve the right to change my mind, but I believe, Brad, that you and I are simpatico here, because I think that's the way the Dolphins are going to handle one Devon Achane. Now, Scott, if I kick it back to you, we talked about Trey McBride earlier. He is going as the 107 in FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament drafts right now. Tight end premium leagues, obviously, so you know if you're getting McBride, Bowers, Loveland, any of these guys, you're getting added FFPC points. How do you feel specifically, Scott, about McBride going in the mid-first round right now? Does that let's do the Goldilocks question here. Does that feel like too high, too low, or just right for you right now?
Just right. There's like 6 guys that tend to go in the first 6 picks. I think it's the perfect spot for McBride.
Okay, so let me bring up this. And I don't want to make it seem like I am totally against McBride. I think about all the stuff that had to go right last year for McBride. Benching Murray, getting Brissett in. The fact that they were down like early on in every second quarter, definitely mid-second quarter last year, where McBride was, having 600-700 receiving yards in the second half. Is there something to consider in regards to tight end premium leagues drafting McBride in the mid-first round, Scott, when you consider I could get McBride there and he could be great, but I could get Loveland in the early third. I could get Tyler Warren at the 4-5 turn. I could get Harold Fannin at the 4-5 turn. I could get Tucker Kraft in the mid-fifth round. I think there is something to be said about how we handle McBride, given how good he was last year with a Cardinals team that had to be throwing the ball seriously, like all the time. I understand you're on board with McBride in the mid first round, but when I bring up all these other ADPs with some of these other FFPC tight ends, does that make you feel like, okay, McBride is a fine investment there, but maybe I want to wait and get in on some of the other tight ends, Scott?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no right or wrong strategy. I think McBride's going in the right spot, okay, based on what he's done for the last 2 years. I think Brad mentioned it, maybe 7 or 8 good tight ends. And I think that it's more than conceivable that you take somebody else in the first round. You may have a running back or a wide receiver that you really like there. And then you get a Warren, or you get a Fannin, or you get a Kraft. I've done a bunch of drafts where I've taken Tucker Kraft. I didn't take a tight end in the first round. So it's not an all the time thing. But I do like McBride. I think he's placed properly in a tight end premium. And I believe that Brock Bowers is a solid first round tight end premium pick as well. So, I mean, that's the price you have to pay if you want one of those two guys. If you can pick, let's say, out of those other 5 or 6 tight ends, if you can pick the one that's going to go off next year, and he's going to be up there with McBride and Bauer, then that gives you an edge. But some of them will, some of them won't. So, I mean, it's kind of like, do you want to lock in one of those two guys and forget about it and move on to your other positions? Or, how do you feel about the rest of that group? All I can tell you is in the past couple of years that mid-round tight ends have not fared well. Okay? They really haven't. They say, get them very early or wait till late and grab a bunch of guys late. So, I mean, it's easy to click the button on a Bowers or a McBride. You don't have to think too hard about it, too long about it. But for me personally, I see a little bit of a drop off after the first 6 guys. And so that's what makes it feel right. Okay. I want to get one of the best players at a position. And, you got Bijan and Gibbs and McCaffrey and all these guys going early. Do you want to go to that 4th or 5th running back, or do you want to take a guy like McBride? So that's where I usually end up.
Brad, how do you feel about, and I think Scott makes a good point here with drafting early tight end or mid tight end, or, after the late tight ends have gone. Brad, how do you feel? Because I think I've changed my position on how I'm handling tight ends this year. I want to get your thoughts on this. Is it better off drafting a guy like McBride or Bowers or, Loveland for, your never too early best ball teams early on? Or is it also better to wait where you can, hang on to, round 9, where you can get Juwan Johnson, Brenton Strange, George Kittle, who's dealing with obviously the Achilles injuries, Dallas Goedert, Hunter Henry, all these players that have sniffed around top 5 FFPC tight end premium scoring. What do you do in the never too early best ball tournament as far as it goes with tight end, Brad?
I like to have one that I take early where he's just the guy I can count on. But I agree, like those late round tight ends, Kyle Pitts, I don't know where he was taken last year, but he buried my teams in the playoffs last year. And so a guy like Kyle Pitts, sure, like he didn't, he wasn't going very early last year. And so, yeah, taking shots on like the Juwan Johnsons and guys like that, I'm fine with. And there's a few guys that are, on my list this year. But I like to have the McBrides or the Bowers as just my number one, a guy that I know I can count on, and then take some late round shots on those other guys.
In the never too early best ball tournament last year, and listen, Kyle Pitts ADP changed in regards to the main event, the Big Gorilla, so on and so forth. But as it stood last year, when the FFPC never too early best ball tournament closed, tight end 7 at the 602 for one Kyle Pitts last year, which is, I mean, listen, it's something to whether you want to handle him at that spot or let him, fade him or target him or whatever. That is where he was going last year. So it's something it's good to know for this coming year in drafts that are already going on right now. Okay, Brad, Sam Laporta, speaking of tight ends, I have to ask you about him because he's in a weird situation right now. Sam Laporta got hurt last year, and if he's coming back in 2026, he is obviously going to be dealing with Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, all these other players in Detroit that had significant inputs on this Detroit passing game. Sam Laporta is going as tight end 8 at the 605 in the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament. That is a half round behind Kyle Pitts. It is roughly 1 round behind Tucker Kraft, and you are looking at a round and a half behind one Harold Fannin. Is going ahead of Aranda Gadsden, Jake Ferguson, Kenyon Sadiq, and Dalton Kincaid. How do you feel about Sam Laporta at the 605, knowing what he underwent last year, Brad, but also knowing, the possibility of a massive performance with Detroit with a new offensive coordinator on staff?
Yeah, having the herniated disc he had, where he had that surgery, it's always a concern, of course, and you don't know how long it's going to take for him to recover. But up until that injury, he was doing well. He played in 8 games. He had almost 500 yards in those games. So he was producing before he got hurt. The new OC that's coming into Detroit, Drew Petzing, the OC from Arizona, who had McBride peppered for 126 receptions last year, give or take. There's nothing that makes me more excited about that. This is a coach that's run a lot of 12 and 13 personnel, so he's going to be using the tight ends very often. Laporta was producing when Jameson was playing, when Amon-Ra was out there. I'm not concerned about the target share. I think he's just a really good tight end, and I think he's one of those few tight ends that still has elite upside that can win you a league if he hits his ceiling.
Let me say this, Brad. There's a lot of people out there that would tell you that Laporta is and I'm qualifying this, the tight end dead zone, right? Where you avoid that spot for that position. I don't know if I'm on board with that, and I feel like Laporta might be the type of guy. He might be a tight end that you take in FFPC tight end premium leagues this year as a player. One of the last few players in a tight end tier that could end up being a really massive reinforcement for your team rather than a player that is just kind of like, meh, you'll see what you get from him. As the 2, the 3, the 5, the 7 players after Laporta might be drafted, you can include Laporta in that. I don't know if I am. I think that there is something to be said about Laporta going forward this year as far as where you can get him in FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament drafts, Brad.
Yeah, I think you said there's a big drop-off. I think for me, after Laporta, I think you're looking at guys like Jake Ferguson, the first rookie, Kenyon Sadiq. It's a drop-off. And so I think Laporta is that last guy that I'm like, okay, I feel pretty good about having. And Detroit's offense is another offense that I'm definitely targeting, as is everybody, I believe. So that can't hurt.
It's weird because, to your point, Brad, I think a lot of people were like, oh, God, they hired Petzing. This is awful. And then you look at what he was able to do in Arizona and like, oh, maybe it's not that awful for Detroit. And I think as the season goes on, most of us will be looking at that Detroit offense from that standpoint. So if you want to trade or draft guys like St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Gibbs as maybe the 102 or the 101, I think there's a lot to be liking about that theory right now in fantasy football. Scott, I want to bring this back to you. Let's go back to Buffalo. Nobody, I shouldn't say nobody. I lump myself into this. I was of the belief that James Cook was going to be a regression candidate in 2025 to the point where one of the private dynasty leagues I am in, I offered James Cook for a future first-round pick heading into the 2025 season. And the guy I offered that to turned it down. And that guy ended up I shouldn't say beating me. He ended up meeting me in that Dynasty League championship, and I beat him because of James Cook. And he told me after that game, he's like, "Oh, I should have accepted that deal for James Cook." And I'm like, what deal for James Cook? I don't know. And I forgot I offered that to him. And so now I look at 2026 drafts right now, and you consider where you can get James Cook. Listen, Joe Brady, yes. Josh Allen, yes. No Sean McDermott. It seems like everything is going good for James Cook right now. So is he about to beat the regression to the mean for a second straight year where he's cashing in on the touchdowns we expect, cashing in on the rushing yards we expect? What do you think as far as expectations go for James Cook, Scott, when it comes to 2026 drafts? Can we just draft James Cook confidently, or do we need to pull it back a little bit? Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a mixed answer for me. If you look at his stats last year, James Cook's always around 30-some receptions. Okay, I don't expect that to change. If anything, it might go up a little bit. He tends to get double-digit touchdowns. I think he will do that again in this coming year. I mean, he had 12 last year, which was a bit of a regression from 16 or whatever number he had the year before. Mm-hmm. I know he went down like 4 touchdowns or something like that. But the 1,600 and some yards rushing, I think he's going to regress from that. That's going to be a hard number to hit again. Like I could see him more maybe 1,300, 1,400 rushing yards. I think his touchdowns could go from 12 to 15, let's say. They might go up a little bit. Receptions might go up a little bit. I think overall you're going to get about the same thing this year in James Cook that you got last year, which was pretty good. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't say that his rushing yards won't drop because he had a phenomenal year last year.
3 consecutive years for James Cook rushing the ball over 1,000 yards, including a career best 2025. I'm going to reiterate this again. James Cook had a career best rushing output in 2025, 1,621 yards. That was the most he ever had in one season in his career. When he came in the league in 2022, 2 rushing touchdowns. 2023, also 2 rushing touchdowns. You look at 2024, between rushing and receiving, 18 touchdowns. 2025, when everybody said he was going to fall back to the mean and not do anything. In 2025, 12 rushing touchdowns, 2 receiving touchdowns. He still had 1,400. He still had 14 touchdowns total that year, and that included 1,600 yards on the ground. Listen, I'm with you. Like I can't envision a scenario with James Cook where he has just like this massive step back. For me, and maybe I'm in the wrong on this, I think he gets close to what he did not in 2025, but in 2024, where he's rushing for well over 1,000 yards. And when you consider James Cook in the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament right now as running back 7 at the 203, get this dude in the second round with 6 running backs off the board. Genty is off the board. Jonathan Taylor, Achane, McCaffrey, Gibbs. McCaffrey, by the way, who is listen, I like him this year. It's fine. But he's going on year 56 in the league. So there's something to be said of drafting James Cook over Christian McCaffrey. And then Cook is also right ahead of Omari Hampton and Jeremiah Love. So depending upon how you believe in those young running backs, maybe Cook is the play there. Okay. We have to get to this final question tonight. And guys, I apologize that I've kept you this long, but we're going to go forward with one final question. Brad, I'm going to let you go first on this. A player, as it stands right now, February 3rd, 2026, a player that you want to be all in on, a player that you want to be drafting, not only in the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament with the FFPC, but just in fantasy football leagues in general this year, a player you want to be in on and a player you want to be out on. Brad, I'll ask you first, and then Scott, I want you to weigh in on how you feel this question should be answered properly.
Sure. So a player that I really love, we just talked about him with James Cook. I think this guy is such a lock in the early second round. Couldn't say more positive things about this guy. I would say anytime I can get a projected first round wide receiver going in double-digit rounds in fantasy drafts, I'm going to do it. Casey Concepcion is a guy that's being projected as early as 20 to the Bills in the first round. This guy is a great athlete. He's from Texas A&M. He's been used as a kick returner on the running game. He's great size. He's very fast. I think he's going to do well at the combine. And he's going pretty late. I want to say 12th round was ADP. So this guy is automatic. Take him all the time.
Hold on, just real quick to interrupt you, Brad. Casey Concepcion is running back. Beg your pardon. Wide receiver 56, as you said, middle of the 12th round right now. This is a guy that he either did not show up at the Senior Bowl or he left early from the Senior Bowl, which to me suggests that he, from his agent, knows he's going to be going higher in the draft right now. And so if you are drafting in the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament as wide receiver 56 right now in the mid-12th round, this is the type of player. Cash in on him. Sign up for your leagues right now. Cash in on him right now in the mid-12, because I got to believe in a few months, to your point, Brad, he might be going quite a bit higher than he is in the mid-12. Go at it with a player you're avoiding, Brad.
We talked about him earlier. I think he's one of the best receivers in the NFL. And I really wish we're getting more of a discount on Malik Neighbors. It's really hard for me to click mid-second round pick on him right now. First of all, he tore his ACL early last season, but also there's a torn meniscus, which is even more concerning by a lot of doctors that I'm seeing right now. The recovery time is anywhere between 9 to 15 months. And we don't know by the time he even gets back, how well is he going to play? Is he 100%? I've heard possible PUP list. This is just not a guy I want to take a shot on in January and February drafts. There's just a lot safer options. And I wish he was being more of a discount as far as like the 2-3 turn maybe. So I'm off of Malik Neighbors, unfortunately. I like him. I think he's great. Just tough ADP.
So Scott, let me lead into your answer to this question with that. Malik Neighbors right now, as far as his ADP goes in the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament, wide receiver 8 at the 204. Brad is obviously skeptical at that price point. How do you feel about you drafting when you're on the clock, mid-second round? How do you feel about Neighbors at that spot?
I mean, I love Neighbors this year, with Jackson Dart trying to get a full year, but the latest news has me a little bit concerned.
Yeah.
And there's not much clarity to it either. I mean, we're hearing different stories every day, and nobody wants to put a timeline on it. I think the quote was, "I'll be ready when my body tells me I'm ready." I mean, it's like, and that whenever I hear that, man, I know he's a long ways away. And so right now, even though I have drafted him in that area, I'm probably refraining from drafting him at that point. He would have to maybe fall later in late second before I would actually think about it.
Okay. To that point, and you don't have to weigh in on this, but I'm just telling you right now, Neighbors, wide receiver 8 at the 204 in the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament. Guys going right after him: Omarion Hampton, Jeremiah Love, Nico Collins, Chase Brown, Saquon Barkley, George Pickens, Colson Loveland. These are all players that I think, and I'm not saying it's true for all those guys, but you feel really good as it stands in early February with a lot of those players over a Malik Neighbors, who, to his point, said it's not going to be the Giants. It's not going to be John Harbaugh. It's not going to be anybody else with New York making my decision. I'm going to tell you when I'm healthy, and my return date is when I feel healthy, which is refreshing to me. I like that. And, to the point where I like it but I also don't like it if I want to draft Neighbors, because this is a player that I probably will be staying. I don't want to say staying away from, but until he has some sort of like concrete, like, hey, yeah, I feel good about OTAs, I'm going to be going this year. Until I hear something like that or see something like that, I'm out. But if you are drafting early and you could pair Neighbors with Jackson Dart, oh, baby, that is something to be very excited about for 2026. Okay, Brad, what about you? A player you're fading, a player you are targeting right now?
Me?
Brad,
sorry.
Okay.
Another player that I'm fading right now?
Yeah.
Man, Travion Henderson's a pretty tough click right now.
This is interesting. I'm glad you bring this up, because there's a lot of people that and obviously we got the Super Bowl in front of us, but there's a lot of people saying that Stevenson is the player over Henderson. And Brad, I wonder how that trickles over to next season.
That's what I'm wondering. I think, we're so focused right now on the Super Bowl and how Ramondre's, I don't even know what did Travion had like 2 touches in last week.
Yes.
So it's concerning. I don't know if he's in the doghouse, what's going on. We've seen him play massive games this year as a rookie. And I do expect he's a big playmaker. He makes big runs. And I would not take Ramondre over Travion in ADP next year. But going like at the 3-4 turn, it's just too early for me, for a guy that I'm not sure what his workload is going to be next year, how they're going to utilize him. And so he's just a fade. He's just not a guy that I want to draft right now. Maybe he turns it on in the Super Bowl. Maybe we get some positive news in the offseason. Maybe we find out what's going on, but I'm not liking this playoff run for him.
Scott, as a guy who is drafted in like numerous years in the FFPC, what do you think a big Henderson Super Bowl would do for that Patriots running back ADP between him and Stevenson?
Oh, it would blow it up. I mean,
so if Henderson, just real quick, if Henderson has a big game, this is going to not revolutionize, but it's going to radically change the ADP for these Patriots running backs going forward.
Yeah, there's my fade is Drake May. Okay, that's a player I'm fading at his ADP. What is it? The recency biased. Everybody's watching the playoffs and the Patriots are in the Super Bowl. It's like. And so Drake May and Henderson and all these guys get blown up a little bit, probably higher than maybe what they should be. But yeah, I agree with Brad. I mean, Stevenson's the clear number 1 this year. We don't know what Henderson's role would be, but to answer your question, Balky, is like if Henderson has this 150-yard game in the Super Bowl with 2 touchdowns, he's going to be a 2nd-round pick.
Yeah,
I mean, he's going to shoot right up.
And by the way, I agree with you, but it's crazy because I know that's what's going to happen. It's crazy, but I agree with you.
Yeah,
Brad. And maybe this is the best way to ask it. Seahawks, Patriots. You got the Super Bowl coming up. Is there anything that you're watching for never too early drafts with a value spike, be it Kenneth Walker? I don't know how much JSN could spike, but you think about a guy like Elijah Arroyo, AJ Barner, Sam Darnold for that point as well. There are certainly a decent amount of Seahawks we're watching. Should we be watching a certain amount of Patriots as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think we kind of I'm looking at some of these guys. Rashid Shaheed's interesting. How, what's his involvement in this? Is he going to stay with Seattle next year? I really like Torrey Horton. I know he was injured, but is he? He's an interesting late round guy. And of course, how New England, their playmakers, their receivers, they have a bunch of guys that are just kind of mixed in. So I want to see how they utilize them. And Sam Darnold, I don't trust him. And I still, even in the Super Bowl, I don't know if I completely trust Sam Darnold in this game. He's just not a guy I really ever draft. So I want to see, can he play against this defense? Can he step up when it's big?
I think that you guys are making a lot of good calls in regards to Sam Darnold and Seattle here. I'll leave it at this. And final question here tonight. Exclude the Super Bowl. Scott, I'll let you go first. A player that we have not talked about tonight that you are either super down or super on for 2026 drafts.
There's a player, a wide receiver going in the 10th round, okay? And if you could get a receiver in the 10th round that every year catches 90 passes, all right, you'd love that, right? Wan'Dale Robinson, okay?
Yeah.
Slot receiver. He's a free agent. If he goes back to the Giants, I still think he's going to be good because he does it every year. He went over 1,000 yards last year, okay? But this guy catches, he gets 120 targets or whatever. I mean, a 10th round pick. And I think slot receivers go underestimated sometimes, because they're not the big name alphas. But Wan'Dale Robinson in the 10th round is a fantastic value.
I am with you 100% on this. I have had the opportunity to move him in several dynasty leagues. I have not seen the good return that I'm looking for. So I'm with you that Robinson is a guy that I want to be in business with 2026 leagues coming up. Brad, I'll leave this final question up to you. There's been numerous players we have not talked about tonight. Is there a player that you are all the way out on, or is there a player that you are all the way in on as far as athletes that we have not broken down as part of this podcast this evening?
Yeah, I think every year, I think we have that, tight end in a rookie class that moves up over time. And really, we don't have that locked in number 2 guy right now. I would keep an eye on one guy, Eli Stowers. Heard a lot of great things about him. He's very athletic. He's almost like used as a wide receiver. I think this guy could move up pretty big in the ADP. I think he's going to test really well, and I think he's my tight end too. He's going 17th, 18th round. Wouldn't surprise me. He moves up. He's a guy to keep an eye on.
If you are drafting early on, Eli Stowers is tight end 30 at the 1606 in the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament. And I'll just say this right now. Until we see these guys in action in, workouts or, the NFL scouting combine or whatever, these are the players that could move up. Now, what you're giving up with Stowers, drafting him in the 16th round, it's nothing, right? Like, you are not giving up anything to draft him on your team. However, if he pays off and you can get him in the 16th round in early February, prior to the NFL Combine, prior to all this other stuff going on, man, that is looking like a great find. So I love that call from you, Brad, for sure. Scott and Brad, this has been a great joy for me tonight. I apologize. I've kept you on much later than I thought. But anytime we get guys who are drafting, not only for the Never Too Early Best Ball tournaments, but drafting for players that are going to be significant difference makers and needle movers in the FFPC coming up in June, July, August, and September. Anytime I can have you guys to come on to talk about that, it's great. Brad, have you spent all the money in the Never Too Early Best Ball championship from a couple years ago?
I use the money wisely. I'm use it for this house that I'm in right now. So, yeah.
And Scott, you gave him all the best advice in the world when it comes to how to spend that money, right?
Absolutely. I didn't want him blowing that. I mean, as much as he wanted to buy 5,000 fantasy teams, I said it would be much better to put it into a house.
Is there a friendly rivalry between father and son here, Scott, between you guys? Because I know, like, when it comes to drafting the never too early best ball teams, I mean, you guys are like the definitive father and son team drafting in these squads.
No, there's not really a rivalry between us. I just hate when he gets in my leagues because he takes all my guys.
Brad, is that the way that you handle it as well? Is you're taking all your father's players?
Yeah, we really try hard to avoid getting in the same draft. It's already happened this year, I believe. And so, yeah, we have the same mind when it comes to a lot of guys. And so it kind of messes things up. I don't think he's ever won when I'm in his league. So
is that true, Scott?
I don't know. Last year, it's true. The ones I was in with him last year, I didn't win any of them. Okay? And so I knew he was a detriment to my success.
And Brad, do you guys ever like team up? Are you ever on the same team in any of these never too early best ball tournament drafts?
No, I don't think it's anything we ever talked about. I think we just like doing our own drafts. I don't know if we would work well together drafting on one team or not. We might clash and might not be good.
Scott, do you ever, when it comes to like, the never too early tournament is obviously going to close in late April. Do you and Brad ever team up on any other leagues for the remainder of the season?
The only thing we ever talked about was the main event, about kind of going in together and actually going there and doing it live. It's kind of something that I want to do. Okay. Haven't done it yet, but I thought it would be really cool to go to Vegas and go through the whole thing. I've been to some live drafts and there's a real difference in them than online. It's almost like a party atmosphere. It's pretty wild.
I will tell you this, guys, and this is my promise to you, live on the internet. So it's no lie. If you guys make it out to Planet Hollywood this coming year, no matter what day you draft, Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, the three of us will hook up for a drink and we'll talk about whatever. And the drink will be on me, because I definitely want to hang out with you guys and pick your brain, because I normally pick your brain in January and February. I want to get to know what you guys are thinking about players in September. That could be the key to unlocking $1 million grand prize, which you guys could win this coming year. Thank you so much for hopping aboard this Tuesday night, hanging out with me much later than I thought. I wish you all the best in this never too early best ball tournament that you guys are both drafting in, as well as all the tournaments that we have in the FFPC going forward. Thanks so much for hopping aboard tonight. Guys, be good, and we will talk with you again very soon.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Absolutely. That is Scott Thomas. That is Brad Thomas, the father and son duo that hung out on the season 11 premiere of the RotoViz High-Stakes Lowdown tonight. Always good to chop it up with those chaps. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure that you are paying attention to the FFPC, myffpc.com. We talked about the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament tonight, $125 to get in, which Brad and Scott have both done. They're eligible for a $100,000 grand prize if you want to get in on the Never Too Early Superflex Best Ball Tournament. $35 entry fee for a $40,000 grand prize as well. I beg your pardon, $40,000 grand prize for the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament, $10,000 grand prize for the Never Too Early Superflex Best Ball Tournament, myffpc.com. And if you want to play FFPC or just fantasy football year-round, myffpc.com is where to go. The Dynasty Orphan page is blowing up. We just sent out an email today that cited if you are the owner of a $77 or $100 FFPC Dynasty Orphan team and you are planning on orphaning the team, or if you're an owner of the Dynasty team in those formats and you're planning on orphaning the team, orphan it now because we're running low on those teams. And there's a lot of people that want to play 365 days year-round with the FFPC. Sign up now, myffpc.com, myffpc.com, for all those Dynasty Orphan teams. And by the way, if you sign up at myffpc.com with the email, the registration email, I will add you to the Dynasty Dispatch list if you sign up for that. So if you are not only playing FFPC year-round with Best Ball Tournament, Big Gorilla, Main Event. If you want to sign up for playing fantasy football every single day of the year, I will add you to that Dynasty dispatch list so you can get the latest goings on with the FFPC Dynasty dispatch, FFPC Dynasty Orphans, Dynasty Startups, everything Dynasty going on, myffpc.com. That is going to be great. Okay, this is the first night of 3 consecutive nights broadcasting on the FFPC YouTube channel. Tomorrow night, we will have Farrell Elliott making his return to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. We will interview 2025 FFPC Big Gorilla Early Rampage Champion, Tommy Heron. Yeah, you know him. He's been on the show before. He will join us tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to talk about how he won the Early Rampage Tournament and how you can win the Early Rampage Tournament this year. And then Thursday night, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, I will be joined by Sean Green from the Sports Gambling Podcast, longtime FFPC owner, longtime FFPC player in the Pros vs. Joes. He will join me for 2 full hours. We'll talk Dynasty. We'll talk Best Ball. We'll talk everything going on with the FFPC as in regards to the NFL right now. That will be going on Thursday night. So that'll be your week this week. We will have the Thomases, we will have the Heron, and then we will have the Green on Thursday night. And then I will be in Kentucky drafting live with one Farrell Elliott and everybody else in the the KFFSC Super Sunday Draft. That's going to be a lot of fun. 5 drafts on Saturday, 2 drafts on Super Bowl Sunday, and then I'll watch it live from the VIP lounge at Caesars in Southern Indiana, hanging out with Farrell and all the other luminaries that draft in the FFPC and the KFFSC. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Tonight, I will bid you adieu, and I will talk with you on these streams tomorrow on the HSFF Hour with KFFSC's own Farrell Elliott and Tommy Heron, the FFPC Early Rampage Tournament Champion from 2025. Going to be a good one. Don't miss it. Thanks so much for watching.
Thank you for listening to the High Stakes Lowdown, a RotoViz podcast brought to you by the Fantasy Football Players Championship. And thanks to Grapes for our theme music. Please review the podcast on Apple Podcasts under the RotoViz radio feed. It helps us find new listeners. Contact us via email at rotovizradio@gmail.com. We'd love to hear what you think and connect with us on X at RotoVizRadio. Remember, you can always support the show by subscribing to RotoViz at a 10% discount using the code RVRadio2025. That's RVRADIO2025 through the NFL Podcast homepage at rotoviz.com/podcast.